So yes, I'm Steve Livingston. I'm the Associate Director of the Business and Economic Research Center here. So what I'm going to do is spend the next few minutes going over broadly how this grant program works and how you apply for one. And then we will be going into different aspects of this in more detail later on. Okay, so the purpose of this program is to provide affordable funding for essential community facilities in rural areas. And there's a definition for that, which is below, but really the way to think about it is almost everything is covered. What the purpose of the program is, and that is to provide affordable funding to develop essential community facilities in rural areas. And that means essentially just about everything. Really about the only things that are excluded from the program are commercial activities, something that's going to make a profit, and something that is just totally recreational. I mean, almost everything else is going to get covered. And I just picked out some examples. Tennessee bodies have gotten a number of these grants, but here's just three almost at random examples. You see a new elementary school was built using this program. Some fire protection equipment was purchased using this program. And Covington repaved a portion of its city streets for this program. So there are all kinds of things that you can do with it. So who can apply? Well, it's intended for rural areas. So the service area for whatever the proposal is should be less than 20,000 people. There is a priority for very small communities with 5,500 people or less. And, basically it's not intended for well-to-do areas. So the area that's applying should have a household income that's an average household income that's somewhat less than the state average, 80% or less. Okay. And then it's limited. The applicants are limited to three kinds of applicants: public bodies, governments basically. Community-based nonprofits. Community-based means this isn't like some national nonprofit, right? These are local nonprofits, or federally recognized tribes. So how do you apply? Well, we're going to go through that in some detail. The application process is year-round, so you can apply whenever. But if you remember, if you learned somewhere along life's highway that the American fiscal year begins on October 1, there's going to be more money early in the fiscal year. And so really it's probably optimal to get an application in the fall. And then probably the most important thing in this entire presentation, which is really the first thing to do, is to get a hold of the Rural Development Office in your area and talk to them about what you want to do and get their advice. And on the next slide here, Tennessee is divided into a number of different areas. So it's simply a matter of calling up the area where you are and asking that person for help and telling them about your idea. Okay, so now how do you apply? Everything's online. You can upload everything online. So accessing and using them will be in one of our next sessions, but it can be an entirely online process. Okay. Now, this confused me when I first learned about the program. Pre-application. Pre-application is getting all of your documents together. Okay, once all of your documents are together and uploaded, you have applied. So application is pretty simple. Pre-application is the activity that takes some time, and that's getting all the necessary documents together. Okay, so maybe it's somewhat self-evident what you have to do. You're simply going to have to show what you want to do, how much it's going to cost, who it's going to serve, that you are a legitimate entity, and things of that sort. There's no special order to do that in, whatever works. USDA does suggest that the first thing you might think about doing is getting your organizational documents together and then completing the SAM registration process, which I believe we're talking about later on in the program. And once you do that, you will get a unique entity ID number. Okay, maybe I'll say right now, there's one slight difference in how you go about applying, depending on whether you're building something or not. Some of the forms are different for engaging in construction rather than simply buying something. Okay, There is on the website an overview checklist, and I'm basically going to go through that checklist. The two start items are, we'll see them when they pop up, but if you're a public body, you don't need to do these two things. Okay, but we're just going to go step by step. Excuse me. And the first thing that we can think about is you're going to have to show that your organization actually wants to do the project that you're proposing, right? So if you are a nonprofit, you're going to have to demonstrate something. There's a form to put this in, Form 1942-8, and this is going to be a resolution or minutes from a meeting or something that shows your organization has approved this grant application. If you are a public body, it should be in the form of a resolution to apply for federal assistance. Okay, so you will start with this. Then you are going to have to show that you are legitimate, I guess. If you're a public body, it's pretty easy because the USDA can just look up and see if you have a charter. If you're a nonprofit, there is a sort of mini checklist of things that you need to do, which you probably have on hand. A copy of your articles of incorporation, an IRS letter saying that you are indeed tax exempt, a list of who's on your board and their addresses, and then a charter, the charter that is recorded that shows you exist. Okay, then there is something called an SF-424 forms. And these vary a little bit depending on whether they're construction projects or not. But you are simply going, in these forms, you put down your basic budget information that you are asking for the grant, and then some assurances. So you will fill those two out. It's not a particularly difficult thing to do. And then you are going to get into explaining your project. And you are going to say what it is, and you are going to say why it's needed, and then you're going to give a cost breakdown. Now, if it's a matter of just purchasing something, that might not be a particularly detailed thing you have to do, but if it's a larger project, you'll have to break down what's being spent and when. Then we get to the registering with the systems award management system. I guess for now, all I would say is we've got a big bureaucracy here and a lot of computers that your grant is going to have to be managed through. And so they need some way of identifying you against every other grant that's in the system. That's what that's about. Okay, then the next thing you have to do is you have to show that you weren't able to get the financing you needed from a private entity, commercial entity. Now, first off, no commercial entity. I mean, it'd be extraordinary if there's a bank anywhere that can give you a better deal. So this really is, it's sort of going through the motions, but it should be obvious, I guess, why you have to do it. I mean, the federal government is not in competition with banks, so they want to make sure you couldn't have got the money at a better deal somewhere else. And the way you do this is you get at least 3 written statements from local lenders that indicate what they would have charged you, right? What would be the rates and terms if they were the ones that were giving you the loan? Okay, so they don't actually have to go through the process of applying for the loan and being accepted or rejected and all that. It's just they have to say what they would give you in terms of an interest rate in terms if they were the ones that were funding the project. And I do have an example. In a way, it's kind of a bad example because this is a letter from someone that did review an application, and you really don't have to go through all of that. Then you've got to give some financial information that basically, shows that you're a responsible manager of your monies. You need some audited financial statements from 5 previous years. You've got to show what your operating budget is and what the budget's going to be for the year when you anticipate getting this grant. You're going to have to show your current balance sheet, your capital improvement plan, and then there's a financial feasibility report, which is on the next slide, Form 1942.54, that you have to fill out. Most of what is on Form 1942-54, you have filled out someplace else. So it's a matter of just doing it all over again. But this form does ask you to show the revenue that you anticipate for a typical year of your operation. It's going to ask you to show if you're getting money from some other source to help you with this same project. And it's going to ask you if you have operated projects like this in the past. This is only going to be if you're doing a construction project, but you are going to need an architectural report if you're doing a construction project. And the best way to proceed with this really maybe is to contact your rural development office. They're not in the business of recommending particular companies, but they can tell you the companies that have worked with other people that have applied for grants to give you some ideas of who to contact. Then if you are a nonprofit, you have to show that there's local support in your community for this project. And that means that the local government officials support the project. Okay. And then you're going to, I guess you did this on the previous form, but you're going to have to attest that you don't have the money without this project to complete what you're trying to do. Everything has to have an environmental review. Even just simple purchases have to go through an environmental review. And the complexity of that depends on the project. Many projects can be done in just a few days. I mean, if you're just purchasing something, the environmental review can just take a few days. Again, the Rural Development Office can provide assistance on that, right? What do you have to do? What's the timeline for getting this thing completed? And just note, if it's a construction type project, it is going to take you a little longer to get this environmental assessment done. And guess what? You're done. You have completed your pre-application process.